So hello again from the Gillinger studio in London. My name's Michael from Utelogy, and this morning we're very pleased to have Ketan from UCL join us. This is something that we've talked about doing in the past. We've done a series of videos now on remote management, reportability and control, and talking about the benefits of that, but also the reason why we're seeing such a huge uptake for this in organisations around the world, not just universities but corporate, government as well. But we spoke about actually spending some time with our customers, and Ketan's very kindly agreed to give up his time to come and to tell us a little bit about the journey that they've been on so far with Utelogy. So we've got a couple of quick questions here that we're going to go through and hopefully gain some insights. But yeah, thank you so much for coming in, Ketan.
My pleasure.
And before we start, why don't you introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your role and the university itself, because I think UCL is the biggest university in the UK now, is it not?
Yeah, so UCL, if you look at enrollment data, I think is second after Open University. So
Wow.
in terms of enrollment numbers, it is one of the largest out there. So hi, I'm Ketan Parikh. I am the head of technical operations at UCL, but I also own the audiovisual in teaching spaces product that that exists within UCL as well. If I talk about my role, I look after audiovisual desktop and second layer network across UCL. So as it is quite common in higher education, many hats.
Yes,
right?
sure.
And UCL, is an organization I'm incredibly proud to be associated with. We have 50,000 plus students, close to 16,000 plus staff members. Wow. Our students come from 150 different countries, right? So an incredibly diverse community.
Yeah.
It's the footprint it has in London is massive,
Sure.
right? We have got 200 plus buildings.
Yeah, wow.
550 plus teaching and meeting spaces across the campus.
Yeah.
We are sort of divided into two campuses. We have got our bigger Bloomsbury campus, and then we have got our newly created East campus in Stratford as well. And UCL has a very rich history. That goes back to about 200 years now. And it was one of the first universities to admit women on fully equal terms as men. So it's got some really proud history attached to it as well.
Fantastic. Yeah, and a hugely exciting customer for Utelogy. We're really proud to be able to work with an organisation like yours and your team. It shows that we are really going strength to strength, or from strength to strength, certainly in the university market. And
Yeah.
I think it's like the corporate world for us, where the larger the organisation, and you mentioned 200 buildings, that's a lot of rooms. It's a lot to keep control of. It's a lot to manage. It's a lot to report on. So it certainly makes sense. But what we wanted to do is just go through a couple of key questions, and I know you and I could sit and talk about this all day, but really we want to just get to the nub of answering just a few short questions, and we've put them up on screen here today. So key drivers for remote monitoring and management. What we're really asking here is, why is it that you've decided to sort of bring your team through this process of engaging with a company like Utelogy to define the needs for a remote management and reporting system?
So I think if I look at my career history, until about 7.5 years ago, I had no idea about anything about AV, right? I was an IT guy through and through. My career was in IT.
Yeah.
And throughout my career, I was very used to being very proactive in terms of the systems we deployed, being able to make data-led decisions quite regularly. And when I came to UCL into this AV role, it was one of the things I found quite missing.
Yeah.
So if I think about the drivers, if I remove all the low-level stuff and just go a level up, I think it comes down to two things. One is experience and one is data.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
If I think about the experience piece, right, I'm talking about creating an exceptional experience for our teachers, for our students, right? I'm talking about creating an exceptional support experience for our technicians as well. AV in itself is a very, very physical technology stack, or has been before.
Yes.
Everything requires a physical human being to do something. Even something as simple as a room check.
Yes.
You need a physical human being to go into a room, do a series of tests.
Absolutely.
And all of that, right, comes with its own time delays, cost increases, all of those things, right? It doesn't make us efficient. We have got students who are coming in paying a huge amount of money to study at universities like ours, right?
Sure.
International students and local.
Sure.
So for a student to walk into a space and then to find that, there's a fault and it's taking 20, 25 minutes to fix that fault, that's 20, 25 minutes of the lecture gone.
Sure, sure.
A typical lecture might have 100 students in that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So if you do the math, economically, it's quite a large number.
It's a huge number, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So, what we want to do is we want to become more proactive in how we do things. We want to provide our teachers and students with exceptional experiences.
Sure.
And actually, we want to provide our technicians with an exceptional experience in terms of, it's just not about walking across campus and just pushing a few buttons here and there, right? You can do more stuff with this.
Yeah, yeah.
Can you find opportunities to automate? Can you upskill yourself in that area?
Yeah.
So it's about giving them more to sink their teeth into as well.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point, that, because some of the low-level pushback we sometimes get when we're engaging with a customer for the first time, certainly if we're engaging through those support teams, on a rare occasion there is some fear that, oh, hang on a minute, this tool does a bit of what I do, so I don't want to do myself out of a job here. But it's really great to hear you say that, because you've recognised that actually those guys that are in your team, the guys and girls in your team, they have a job to do, and the bit that they probably don't enjoy is when the calls are coming in last minute, drop everything that they've set out to do that day, go and fix something, having to work with someone who might struggle to articulate what the problem is. It's an entirely pressured environment. So if we can remove some of the pace, the stress, the pressure from that, and give them a tool set to enable them to fix these devices, maybe a bit more in their own time, there are huge benefits to that. So that's good.
And I think university, is a very people-oriented organization. Whether it's talking about our teachers, our students, or even our staff members, right? We are a very, very people-oriented organization. So when we bring something like this in, it's never about trying to replace someone, right? It's always about how can we enhance their own experience when they're at UCL.
Yes. Yeah, yeah.
The other thing I spoke about was the data piece, right? I am very used to making data-led decisions.
Right.
Whether it is about applying my funding in the right place, whether it's about making design decisions.
Yes.
Up till now, we've been sort of running a bit blind, really, right?
Yeah, yeah.
A lot of it has been anecdotal. A lot of it has been experiential.
Yes.
Oh yeah, when I went in that space, I saw this.
Yeah.
Right. And there's no data to back it up.
Right.
Something like a remote monitoring and management platform gives us the data that we can then apply for the consistent decision making as well.
Sure, sure.
All universities, right, they all have funding challenges. So making sure that we are able to do more with less, using the data behind it, is just such a huge benefit for us.
Yeah, and I guess that challenge isn't getting any easier for market wide for all organisations in your space, and everyone's looking for those efficiencies, but also for the competitive advantage, to provide the best environment, the best teaching services, the best experience to your customers, which is indeed the students. And as you say, when you've got over 100 of them in one room, there's a lot of revenue attached to that space at that particular time, and it is important it works, and it's important that if you are having problems that you get to see what they are, so that you can see where the trends are, and also be able to fix them remotely. So I guess we're kind of getting into the next question somewhat there, which is, how will Utelogy improve your team's approach to the services that you would provide to UCL?
So I think if I think about my teams, and if I think about historically what we have done, if I was to map the user journey, right, something goes wrong in a space, and a teacher has to physically pick up a phone, right, and call a number, right. That number will take basic details, and they will then have to physically flag it with our teams, and our teams would then commit to reaching there within 10 minutes.
Sure.
And they will get there physically, right, walking through campus, getting into the space, doing whatever they need to do. Sometimes they might have to actually navigate 5 different software packages just to get to the bottom of the problem and then fix it, right?
Right.
All of this is happening with 100 students watching them as well.
Sure.
So I say AV has been a very physical technology stack.
Yes.
And I think we need to shift away from that slightly, right? If you were to ask me what my vision was, I want to create like an AV operations center, right? Like a network operations center.
Sure, sure.
Where I have some people sitting on a desk watching screens and seeing teaching spaces going up and down in real time, and then acting on it to see if they can reduce the impact of that remotely. And if they can't do it remotely, they are then able to go to some of the field engineers we might have and point them in the right direction, saying, look, can you go to this space?
Yeah.
This has happened. this is the root cause of it. So the person walking in pretty much is walking in equipped with a lot of information that allows them to get to the resolution quicker.
Yes, yeah.
And if you even think about room checking, right now, we recruit a large number of student checkers, temporary student checkers, who will walk into space between 8 and 9 every morning and just do some checks.
Yeah.
And if they run those checks and the report starts coming through, they come through at 8, half 8, quarter to 9, which doesn't leave us enough time to go and rectify these issues.
Sure.
But with something like Utelogy, we could run automated room check at 2:30 in the morning. So when my morning shift starts at 7:30, they already have a report of what's gone wrong.
Yeah.
And they can start strategically just going into those spaces, fixing them before teaching starts at 9 o'clock. And it just makes the whole process so much quicker.
Sure.
And from a teacher and a student perspective, right, we are enabling them to be as productive as they can be when they're going into our teaching spaces, right? Maximizing the most out of that 1 hour lecture that they have.
Yeah. And I'm guessing there's big overheads for your organisation because, you're having to employ students, and it's not just the cost of the wages that are associated to those contracts, but there's the back office costs.
The administration is massive.
Onboarding them, offboarding them. I'm guessing it's not your first year students and it's not your final year students, is it? So actually, there's quite a high turnover of that staffing as well.
Yeah, that comes with its own challenges. We have a very specific person who deals with it for me every single year, and I have to tip my hat to them, right? She is an incredible human being. She goes through this process for 3 months every year, just recruiting, getting the right equipment out, getting the inductions done.
Right.
It's quite a time-intensive process.
Yeah, absolutely.
And after doing all of that, you will still have some students who might drop out because they found something better.
Yeah.
And then you have to do a re-recruitment to just cover those. And that recruitment piece, in dribs and drabs, lasts the entire year.
Yeah, and I guess the quality of the output in terms of we're all human, right? And different people on different days. I don't operate at 100% every day. I'm a human, when you wake up in the morning and it's dark and it's wet on a Monday. Yeah, sometimes it takes me that extra hour to get going. Other days, that's my best hour of the day. And I guess using the software to do that, software doesn't have off days. It's a machine, isn't it? At the end of the day, it's giving you that quality data and that quality response every time.
I think there's also something around, if you put a human there, right? For example, if you have students doing it, right? And as you said, they will have their good days, they will have their bad days. Sometimes they might not be well, right? They're calling sick. Well, actually, we have a gap now. How do we cover that gap?
Yeah.
Also, we have had some issues around the validity of the data as well. And, we had to design a very special app that allows us to double check the data and confirm its validity as well, which again is another cost.
Extending the workflow, more cost, more time.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Oh, that's really good, really useful. So in terms of the final question then, so what were your greatest challenges in implementing remote monitoring and management? Because, you've got 1,000 plus rooms, we understand that, and when we're working with organisations of your size, we certainly don't expect as an organisation to go through the value proposition with you and then you say, well, that's great, here's an order for 1,000 plus rooms. So we think it's important to talk about this openly because you've got to design manageability for improved support into the process. So we've been working with you and your team now for about a year. I think we've got another 90 or so rooms going in live with you in the next week or so. But you have a planned rollout stage. If you just want to spend a minute or two talking about why that is, why can't you do the Big Bang? I mean, I know why, but if we could let these guys know what the sort of challenges they're going to face when they're looking at deploying software tools like this.
So I say, I wouldn't say what were your challenges. I think what are your challenges probably more appropriate, right? We are still working through the process right now. If I think of challenges, there are two very specific challenges. One is the rate of the rollout. We can't go full bang, right? So we are currently aiming to have all our rooms rolled out in 2-3 years. I would like to go faster, right? But there are technical challenges, and those challenges come from the fact that if you look at an organization like UCL, it's an organization that's organically developed over the last 200 years. So you end up with teaching spaces which are at different ages. If they're at different ages, you have got different technology stacks in there, right? And you might have different standards, different wiring schematics. So when you think about variances of the room, you might end up with 19, 20 different variances of a room. So And I think when you're deploying something like a remote monitoring and management platform, you want to tackle your variances at a time.
Sure.
And that takes time.
Yeah.
Right? So you have to go and say, look, I'm going to take variance 1. It's got 90 rooms in it. We're going to develop that. We're going to deploy that. And then we are going to go to variance 2, which might have a different DSP or it might have a different microphone systems or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So it's about identifying your variances in your spaces. You need to have a really good grasp of it.
Yeah, sure.
And then tackling your rooms variance by variance. And that's how we have been trying to do it.
Okay.
It's going to take us longer for that reason.
Sure.
The other reason is obviously resourcing, right?
Yeah.
If you want to do a big bang, you have to deploy a significant number of resources behind this. We don't want to do that.
Sure.
Right? We want to do it organically over the next 2-3 years.
And the limitation of what you do, the market that you're in, you know, you have that summer period and the winter break to actually make changes. You know, a software tool like Utelogy can be rolled out actually very, very quickly.
Yeah.
But the remediation works that need to take place in those rooms, that's what's
the
gonna
setup,
take
the
you time.
testing, all of that takes time.
And the planning of that, right? You know,
Exactly.
It's a big job. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, term 1 and term 2, which generally goes from October till March, right?
Yeah.
Those are probably our busiest times. Finding space in our teaching spaces during that time is pretty much impossible. Term 3, it starts to quieten down a bit, but you still have a lot of spaces in use.
Yeah.
But then you come to summer, and then we've got summer schools, right? So again, finding space in our teaching spaces is incredibly difficult.
Yeah, yeah.
So we have to sort of work around that because we don't have the luxury of going to our timetabling team and going, we are going to take 100 spaces out of your, out of your rota. We can't do that.
Sure, sure.
The other aspect, I suppose, the other challenge, and quite a big one, is around culture change.
Right.
I think people think that you buy a remote monitoring and management tool set, you deploy it, and that's the job done. Actually, that's probably 10% of it. The other 90% is the culture change.
Right, of course.
And culture change within your own teams, but also culture change in terms of teachers and students and their expectations.
Yes.
As I said, you know, the AV industry, and if you look at the technicians, they are so used to this idea of just walking into a space and physically pressing buttons and resolving an issue. To then shift them into this remote idea, saying, actually, why don't you look at it from your desk? Why don't you use the tool set that's available for you to see if you can fix it quicker? Right? Because if you're going to walk into a space, it's going to take you 10 minutes to get there.
Yeah, sure.
You do it from your desk through a remote monitoring and management tool set, you know, you're going to get it fixed in 5 minutes.
Of course.
Right? That's 5-10 minutes saved.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's a culture change, right? People are not used to that. They haven't done the job that way for 7 years.
Yeah.
So you have to take them on a journey with you.
Yeah, yeah.
And for teachers and for students, you know, when they are reporting something, their expectation is somebody's going to walk into the space, right, physically, and go, oh, there you go, I pressed the button for you, sorted now. But to then get them around the idea that actually we might not come into the space, but your problem will still get fixed.
Sure.
We'll still communicate with you,
Sure.
just it might not be physically.
And it's going to take time to change that mindset because when it's like anything in life, isn't it? If we're struggling with something that we don't know about and we need someone that does know about how to fix that problem to come and help us, what we're asking for is a security blanket to come and give us a bit of help very quickly. And, you know, and the teaching staff within your organisation, they're on a stage doing it. You know, they've got 100 or so people in the room watching them have this challenge. So yeah, getting them to understand the idea that actually, you know, you might not see someone come into the room, but the reality is we're going to be able to fix that problem and put you back on the road much more quickly. It's going to take a little bit of time. And also from your team as well, that I don't need to put my trainers on and run across the campus. I can do it from here. And then that's less impact on the job that I was doing because, you know, I don't need to run off and do that, and it's going to take 20 minutes of my time. So it's win-win on both sides, I guess.
And I think one of the things that I'm trying to work through is that, you know, yes, while we might not always walk into a space and be physically present there for our teacher, how do we communicate with them in a way that they know that even though they're not here, they're still looking at it. Somebody's looking at it, somebody's working on it actively, right? And I think that's the communication, the change management piece. So something like this, if you want it to be a success, there's a massive change management piece that goes behind it that you have to consider.
Yeah, no, that's great. Really useful insights for not just other customers, but, you know, potentially prospect customers for companies like ours that are looking to engage on that first rung of the journey of remote management and reporting and indeed control, because they've just not had it before. But I guess one of the things that I really like about working for Utelogy is getting to spend time with customers like yourselves, and there's a little a Brucey bonus question we're throwing at the end here, but it's working with people like yourself and your teams that really helps us evolve and drive our platform forward. So I know that there's a special request that you put in for our platform. So why don't you just give us a minute or so on what the request was, and why you've asked it, and what the outcome's going to bring for you.
So this was a request that I actually made to one of my technical specialists, Manny, who is working very closely with Utelogy. He's sort of an expert in all things AV, right? Really fortunate to have somebody like him in our team. And then one day I went to him and I said, when you go to an airport, and if you, let's say, go into the washroom, you have those smiley buttons, right? Whether I had a smiley experience, a neutral experience, or did I have a very frowny experience? I said, well, why can't we do something like that for our lecture theatres?
Yeah.
And he sort of looked at me and he said, why would you want to do that? And I said, look, teaching spaces for our teachers, for our students, even for our technicians is a very emotive subject.
Sure.
Right? They will walk into it, they are trying to deliver under pressure.
Yes.
And if something is not quite right, it actually has an impact. And it has an emotional impact for them as well.
Yeah, yeah.
And they express it in a very emotive way.
Yeah.
Right? And it will be like the world is falling down. Right?
Yeah.
Completely like that. And then if you try to gather some data around it, it might not quite translate into that either.
Yeah.
So it's like, becomes very difficult to take that emotional language coming from there and try to marry up with the data we have here. It's like, well, okay, something's not right here.
Sure.
But if you had something that's very quick, very easy, in the lecture today, on the touch panel, where they can just press a button and go thumbs up, thumbs down, right? And if you did a thumbs down, what was the general issue? Was it a video issue? Was it an audio issue? Did you have issues with content, for example, or something didn't work? Just very simple. It shouldn't take more than 10 seconds. But what that starts doing is starts giving you some real data that you can work with, right? And you can then take the emotional language and actually marry up with the data and go, actually, okay, something is not right here.
Sure.
And you can then start applying some of this ITIL functionality, like the problem management, the ITIL discipline of problem management.
Yeah.
Because you can say, if a space has had thumbs down 5 times in the last 2 weeks, we have a problem here.
There's a trend,
Let's raise a problem record, let's deal with the root cause, and let's remove it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And what we also can start doing with this is, once the data starts coming in, we can actually start communicating to our customers, saying, look, you said this, we did this, we are listening to you.
Yeah, no, it's great.
Right?
It's great.
There's something happening here. You just pressing the button doesn't go into an ether. Somebody, a human being, is looking at it, and we are actioning it, and we are making improvements based on that.
Sure. And I had a quick look at it with George yesterday, who's our technical operations director. So he's shown me what we've built, and I believe it's working in a Power BI dashboard already.
Yes.
And in time it will be working as part of the main dashboard very soon as well. And I guess that's another dimension, isn't it? The dashboard is there to see, where do my problems exist on the site? How is the technology being utilised on the site? But then, how do people feel about this technology on site as well? So it's that third dimension, and
exactly.
It's as you said earlier, it's all about the data, isn't it?
And
I sort of say this in nearly every meeting, but and I've been guilty of it myself in the past. But as users of technology, we don't always report our negative findings in the right way, if at all. We might have a moan in the lunch queue, but we won't appropriately, or correctly log that fault. Whereas this is a really quick way of getting some quick feedback from your users. So
and I think a lot of university leaders will also appreciate this, right? Which is, you're absolutely right. They will probably take their frustration on the chin, not report it, until it gets a bit too much. At which point it goes all the way top of the chain, and then it starts filtering down to you.
And it lands on your desk.
It does, right? And you know what? When it happens, you feel quite helpless at that point, saying, okay, so what could we have done different here? I think this data gives us a lot of valuable information that we can use to actually avoid some of those things. And more than anything else, just make that experience for our students and our teachers better.
Yeah. And I guess it helps you and your team in those situations, because you're still going to have those challenges that do get run all the way up to the top of the flagpole, and they come back to you. But you can sit with the leadership team and say,
that's the data.
This is the data. And actually, that may or may not be true, but also this is why we're concentrating on what we're doing as a team, because we're already reviewing the data. And we can see the problem areas, the hotspots. We're putting our time and focus into that. So it's a justification. It's that data-led decision-making process.
I think for UCL as well, we do our AV slightly differently as well. So, UCL has really bought into this whole agile working methodology, right?
Yes.
Every quarter or every 3 months, we meet together for like a 2-day planning session
Uh-huh.
where we plan what our workload looks like for the next 3 months.
Yes.
And one of the biggest reasons for doing that is to communicate to our user base saying, look, over the next 3 months, these are some of the benefits we're going to deliver to you.
Yeah.
The feedback button is going to feed into that process, right?
Of course.
So every 3 months, we would sit down as a team and go through all the feedback we're receiving, pick some of the biggest tick items and go, we are going to schedule this
Yeah.
to rectify this over the next 3 months.
Yeah.
We can then communicate to our customers and go, look, you said this. In the next 3 months, we are
Yeah.
going to be doing this.
Yeah.
And this is the result of it now. So customers are seeing some return for the feedback they're giving, and
Sure.
hopefully that should mean they will start feeding more and more
They're
and
giving
more.
you more feedback.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they see the value in giving
Yeah.
you their time to do it. There's an output. Yeah. There's
Yeah,
an
exactly.
impact. Look, let's leave it there for today. But Ketan, delighted to be part of this journey with you. As I say, we're incredibly proud to have UCL as a customer. And thank you again for your time today.
my pleasure.
It's been really great to get the insights from you. And all the best. Thanks very much.
Thank you.